Crashing into the stuffy world of boxing like a thunderclap, Chris Eubank was never meant to blend in. From the moment he emerged, he felt like a contradiction walking on two legs. A man who spoke with elegance and precision yet fought with a ferocity that bordered on primal. He was both a meticulous gentleman and an unapologetic predator. A boxer who could dismantle opponents with raw, natural power and then step to a microphone sounding more like a statesman than a prizefighter. In an era that prized grit and humility, Eubank arrived wrapped in confidence, ceremony, and an unshakable belief in his own brilliance, and the boxing world had no choice but to pay attention. Born in England to Jamaican parents in 1966, Eubank's early life was far from aristocratic. Growing up on the outskirts of London, he flirted with street life and rebellion, a path that quickly led to trouble and expulsion from school at just 15. His father's decision to send him to New York became the turning point. In the Bronx, surrounded by unfamiliar danger and discipline, Eubank found boxing and immediately understood its price. The ring did not tolerate arrogance without ability, and pain was the currency of every lesson. By the mid-1980s, he had turned professional, dropping the S from his surname and sharpening a style that blended athletic grace with explosive violence. Early in his career, Eubank fought like a man intoxicated by possibility. He danced at range, dueled with jabs, and gradually layered in sharp right hands that landed with startling authority. His defense was alert and feline, slipping shots just enough to stay untouched before answering from unexpected angles. When he returned to the UK in the late 1980s, his right hand became a long-range missile that haunted the middleweight division. Opponents fell not in chaos but in sequence, exposed systematically as Eubank dismantled their defenses and confidence in equal measure. Victory followed victory, and by 1990 he was unbeaten, already a force no one could ignore. But it was never just the wins. It was the way he carried himself. Eubank rejected the labels thrown at him, insisting he was not arrogant but assertive, not overconfident but prepared. The nickname, "Simply the Best," only widened the divide between him and the British public, who were unsure whether to admire him or resent him. That tension reached its boiling point when he collided with Nigel Benn, a man built on chaos, power, and national adoration. Benn was the people's champion, raw and explosive, while Eubank was the intellectual boxer, calm under fire and razor-sharp in mind and movement. Their first meeting was less a boxing match and more a collision of philosophies. Benn attacked with relentless hooks, determined to overwhelm, while Eubank absorbed the storm and responded with precision. As rounds passed, Eubank's counters found their mark, his composure never cracking even as the atmosphere grew hostile and electric. When the fight ended in the 9th round, Eubank stood victorious, claiming the world title and immediately showing the duality that defined him. He celebrated love, acknowledged respect for his rival, and walked away with gold around his waist, having survived one of the most brutal rivalries British boxing had ever seen. Championship status only magnified Eubank's mystique. He dressed like an aristocrat, spoke with ornate cadence, and appeared at social events as if boxing were merely one chapter in a much larger story. Inside the ring, however, he remained ruthless. Title defenses piled up at a pace almost unthinkable by modern standards, and every appearance felt like theater. Yet beneath the spectacle, something began to change. That shift became unavoidable during his encounters with Michael Watson, a disciplined, determined challenger who pushed Eubank to his limits. Their first fight ended in controversy, the decision favoring Eubank amid widespread disagreement. The rematch was catastrophic. From the opening bell, Watson forced exchanges, dragging Eubank into a war of attrition that stripped away elegance and left only survival. Round after round, punishment accumulated. Then, late in the fight, Eubank found a single opening and landed a devastating uppercut. The bout was stopped, but the damage lingered far beyond the ring. Watson collapsed afterward, slipping into a coma and enduring multiple brain surgeries. Doctors doubted he would ever walk or speak again. For Eubank, the victory came with a weight that never left him. He donated money, supported Watson's recovery, and carried the burden of that night as the defining regret of his career. From that moment on, Eubank was never quite the same fighter. He still won, still defended his titles, but the knockouts vanished. Fights went the distance. Opportunities to finish were met with restraint. The man who once detonated opponents now chose control over destruction. His rivalry with Benn reignited years later in a massive rematch that ended in a draw, a fitting reflection of two warriors who had nothing left to prove and everything to preserve. Time, however, is undefeated. By the mid-1990s, the miles showed. Against Steve Collins, Eubank scored a knockdown but hesitated, choosing caution over instinct, and paid for it with the first loss of his career. He later admitted that mercy had dulled his edge, a realization as painful as any punch. Even so, his career refused to fade quietly. He faced the next generation, including Joe Calzaghe, passing the torch in a grueling battle that showcased his resilience even in decline. Eubank's final chapter came at cruiserweight against Carl Thompson, where courage met consequence. Trading with a larger man cost him dearly, and swelling forced a stoppage despite Eubank leading on the cards. He left the ring to thunderous applause, a farewell earned through decades of defiance, brilliance, and contradiction. In retirement, Eubank remained unmistakably himself. Charismatic, outspoken, philanthropic, and occasionally controversial, he lived publicly and unapologetically. His children carried on his legacy, even rekindling the Benn rivalry through the next generation. And years later, when he reunited with Michael Watson, the moment stripped away performance and ego, leaving only humanity and remorse. Chris Eubank's journey from troubled youth to aristocrat of boxing was never simple. He was elegance and violence, discipline and excess, confidence and regret, all bound into one unforgettable figure. If this deep dive into one of boxing's most complex legends resonated with you,